Welcome to another deep dive, everyone. Today we're unpacking a really foundational explainer that is tailor-made for the focused learner. We're going to tackle a massive milestone, mastering that really tricky transition from the highly structured hold-your-hand world of high school straight into the demanding, self-driven environment of university. So let's jump right in. Our main goal today is all about dismantling those old habits and figuring out how to become a truly independent learner. But before we get into the actual strategies, I want you to ask yourself something honestly. Are you still waiting for your tutor's guidance? Do you catch yourself sitting back, just kind of expecting a teacher to tell you exactly what to read, what to study, and exactly when to do it? Look, if your answer is yes, don't sweat it. You are definitely not alone. But relying that heavily on your teachers is exactly the habit we're going to break today to really guarantee your academic success. So, here is our roadmap for this explainer. 1. The independence paradox. 2. Defining independent learners. 3. Setting your own goals. 4. Conducting independent investigations. And 5. Taking ultimate responsibility. All right, kicking things off with part 1, the independence paradox. There is a really fascinating paradox we need to talk about right out of the gate. The quote here says, "Input from an expert is needed first, to quite a significant extent before independence can gradually follow." You see, you don't just wake up one morning completely independent. It's like a child learning to use a hammer or a student learning how to critically analyze a complex poem. You actually start by relying pretty heavily on the educator. They give you the initial knowledge, the tools, the materials. But the absolute key here is that this dependence, it's temporary. It is a completely normal, totally necessary launch pad. The ultimate goal is to gradually outgrow that support and start applying those skills entirely on your own. Moving right along to Section 2, Defining Independent Learners. If we look at Lesson 7 from our source material, which covers the characteristics of an independent learner, we find this very formal definition. It says, "An independent learner is a person who does not need help from other people in order to get knowledge." Now, I know that sounds super simple, right? But it actually represents a monumental shift in your mindset. It's the shift from being a passive receiver of information to becoming this active, almost aggressive seeker of knowledge. And guys, this represents a massive, massive shift in your daily practice. Think about it. A dependent habit is sitting around waiting for your tutor to hand you a reading list. It's blindly accepting whatever a textbook says as absolute, unquestionable fact. Or, leaving assignments to the literal last minute. An independent habit, on the other hand, means actively spotting your own weak areas. It means diving into the library to hunt down your own resources and critically questioning the assumptions in every single text you read. Lesson 7 actually gives us this fantastic checklist of characteristics for success. I want you to mentally check off which of these you already possess as we go through them. Do you make your own choices about what to study? Do you know exactly where to find information? Or exactly who to ask when you inevitably hit a wall? Can you conduct an investigation on a completely new topic with very limited guidance? Identifying which of these traits you desperately need to work on? Well, consider that your first piece of homework for today. Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, Setting Your Own Goals. To lend some serious academic weight to this whole idea, let's bring in some heavy hitters. We're turning to the foundational theory of goal setting by Locke and Latham. They argue that performance is regulated by the conscious goals that individuals attempt to achieve. Simply put, if you aren't consciously defining what you are aiming for, your performance is absolutely going to suffer. The most goal-driven students in any academic setting are always the ones who stand out as the most successful. But look, not all goals are created equal. An ineffective goal sounds a bit like this. I want to write English very well. Okay, it's a nice thought, but it's vague, it's general, and honestly, it's impossible to measure objectively. Now, an effective goal, and this is pulled straight from our source text, sounds like this. I want to write a 1,000-word essay with basic tutorial support and only 2 errors per paragraph. Do you see the difference there? It's incredibly concrete, you know exactly when you've achieved it, and you know exactly when you've fallen short. So the real secret sauce for formulating your own personal action plan is to follow these keys to effective goals. They absolutely must be exact. They have to be measurable. You should link them directly to a particular behavior or a specific method of working. And finally, you have to understand your motivation. Are you driven by extrinsic factors, like praise from a tutor or getting a certain grade? Or are you driven by intrinsic motivation, just the pure love of learning? Knowing your why is an absolute game changer. It's what keeps you anchored when the coursework gets really tough. All right, on to Section 4, Conducting Independent Investigations. When you make it to university, a massive chunk of your learning happens way outside the lecture hall. Lesson 7 breaks this down into some very concrete steps. Step 1, you have to be self-aware enough to identify a gap in your own knowledge. Step 2, utilize the library and those online academic databases. You can't just rely on standard Google searches anymore. You have to find legitimate research papers. And step 3, conduct the actual investigation on your own. You have to extract the information, synthesize it, and then apply it. Our source text highlights that independent investigation takes some serious strategy. You literally can't just crack open a textbook and start reading from page 1 to page 100 and hope for the best. Successful students read efficiently. They set a clear purpose for their reading before they even begin, they skim the parts they already know, they evaluate the writer's stance, and they predict what kind of information they need to extract. Okay, so you've read the material. Now the real independent work begins. Processing your research means active, hands-on engagement. You need to make new connections between totally different texts. You've got to link material together and hunt for those underlying patterns. And most importantly, you must analyze the material critically. Never, ever just accept a textbook as gospel truth. Ask yourself, what are the weaknesses in the claims this author's making? Is this evidence actually believable? Cultivating that critical state of mind is exactly what separates the top-tier students from everybody else. And that brings us to our final part, Section 5, taking ultimate responsibility. At the end of the day, independence is a state of mind. It's an attitude that you carry with you into every single class. You have to make it your personal responsibility to fill in any gaps in your learning. Our source material points out a really fantastic example of this, proofreading. A student who hands in flawed, error-filled work, just lazily hoping their tutor is going to simply sort it out, is not an independent learner. Having to self-edit forces you to take real ownership of your output. If you are struggling with a concept, it is 100% on you to go to the library, go online, and figure it out. So how do you action this state of mind daily? You take the initiative. Don't wait for your teacher to assign you a task. Go into your tutorials and ask relevant, challenging questions. Bring your own found materials into the classroom to spark a discussion. Propose alternative ideas to your tutors instead of just presenting a blank slate. Be bold, negotiate your classroom learning experience, and constantly review your own progress based on the feedback you're getting. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative question to chew on. What are you doing today to develop your independence as a student? Seriously, don't wait until you think you're perfectly good at reading, writing, and researching before you decide to try being independent. Start right now. Stop waiting for the information to be spoon-fed to you and go out and seize it. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.